Day 2 of testimony in the John Skelton preliminary exam in Michigan started with the cross-examination of Pastor Donna Galloway. And a lot of her testimony today really focused on the conversations she had with John Skelton after his 3 sons disappeared in 2010. I'm Melissa Andrews, a crime and investigative anchor covering the case. Galloway testified that John Skelton contacted her and requested visits while he was in the hospital and later in jail. She estimated that he contacted her at least a dozen times. Some of their initial conversations were because John Skelton was trying to get a hold of Tanya, his wife, but she refused to talk to him unless he said where the boys were. So then Pastor Donna talked to John. Now, the defense spent some of its time questioning whether the conversations that the pastor had with John should be viewed as private conversations between a pastor and a parishioner. She said she did not believe that they were private because other people were usually present, including law enforcement officers. And she also said that she was not a person to take confession, that she had no business absolving anyone of any sins. And in fact, in the phone call that she details and that most of her testimony surrounds, the call in which she said that John said, if anyone would know what I mean when I say I sent them home, you would know. She said that an FBI agent was standing beside her listening and that Skelton did not know that. And then when the defense asked whether she ever told him that an FBI agent was listening, she said no, and she testified that she did not believe that she needed to. Then we got back to that conversation again about Skelton saying, I sent the boys home and you should know what this means. The defense questioned whether this was a confession, and she said she did not characterize it that way, that she interpreted his words spiritually. So she testified that this was the point, that she really felt that Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner would not be found alive, that they would not be coming home. It was her opinion that their lives were taken, that they were now in heaven. But what's important here is this is her interpretation of the conversation. She also testified that John Skelton did not give her any graphic details about what happened to the children. And on redirect, she was asked about the difference between a confession and an admission. She said she didn't know what legally to call his statement. She also says as a pastor, she has never, as I mentioned, taken a confession, and she cannot absolve anyone of anything. Her testimony was that John was speaking to her on what she interpreted as a spiritual level rather than describing something physically. So it isn't necessarily that this is an explicit confession. It's how she interpreted it as a spiritual person. Her testimony ended in a very abrupt way. It was something you can compare to what's happened in the Lindsay Clancy case regarding religion. She was asked by the defense, as a spiritual person, do you believe in fairness and justice? And she said, absolutely. And the attorney said, a member of your church was charged with murder without evidence. How do you feel about that? Objection. Withdrawn. That's a no-no. You don't go there. And that's known amongst attorneys. This attorney keeps poking the bear. And again, it's interesting because he doesn't have 12 or 15 or 18 jurors to sit there and go, I wonder what he's talking about. I mean, it's one judge, and the judge just has to decide if this case can go to trial. So I don't know why we're walking the line with these religious questions. The other problem is when you're questioning someone, you can't just make stuff up. So this attorney is asserting that someone was charged without evidence, and that's just not the case. It's argumentative, and it assumes facts that are not in evidence.